Yeah, so the Gemara is quoting a whole bunch of halachos from Abba, Rabbi Yosy Bar Chama. First one we learned is if somebody makes a commitment that if you swear to me, I will give back this Eved, I'll give this Eved. Once you made such a commitment, even though there's no shul in the Torah, there's no reason why the muhsik should have to give the Eved back. He's a muhsik in the Moshe Mechaber Lefaraya. Nevertheless, once he makes that commitment, that if you swear that it's yours, I'll give it to you, he's locked into it and he has to honor that commitment. That was the first halacha that we heard from our Bava. The next halacha starts at the two dots at the top of Kuf Chavkas. Shalach le Reb Abba le Reb Yosy Bar Chama. Halacha, the halacha is goyvin min ha'avadim. If someone is owed money by an estate, we know only the karka of an Yosem is meshubet to pay back the chayv of the father. We know avodim is hukshu lekarkais. So Abba said that if the children had avodim in the estate, the malva will be able to collect from the avodim. Rav Nachman Omer ein goyvin. Rav Nachman said you would not be able to collect from the avodim. So let's see the response quickly. Rav Nachman Omer ein goyvin. The nehida ishkus lekarkais. Yes, there is a hekesh between Eved and karka. K'dechsev is nachalta moisam. Han the middle is var maksuvim b'Torah. That's only legabe things that are written in the Torah as special halachas that apply to karka. Those will apply to an Eved as well. Kagoin leknoisim b'kesef b'shtaru b'chazaka. The type of kinyan that you use to be kohen a karka, you can use to be kohen an Eved, or b'shaloi lishav alein. Or the Torah is mechayev people with a shvuah, for instance, somebody to the mikzah sometimes for an Eved that halacha that chiv shvuah wouldn't apply. And b'shein b'neinah, there's no din einah by avodim, just as there is no din einah by karkois. But as far as a b'choiv is concerned, k'metaltle dami avodim like metaltle, and the malva cannot take away avodim from an estate. Why is that? The ein b'choiv soymech ela al karkois she'ein yichom le'aved v'le'lazos b'mpem. It's not about any gzeres hakosov. It's about what primarily is the malva relying on as a backstop in the event that the loiva can't pay back. What is he relying on? He's only going to rely on property, because property he can track it. He always knows where it is. Metaltlin could be hidden away anywhere. So therefore, the main smichas das that the malva has when he lends money is for assets that he surely can get, which are karka. I think that's what's called real estate. It's real; it won't disappear. There's no shibud really on avodim because the malva is not rock solid reliant on them because they can disappear. That's why Rav Nachman holds that you're not going to be able to collect a choiv. A malva will not be able to collect a choiv from the avodim of an estate. So we're up to the third halacha. Halacha shlishi b'sheni kosher. You could say edus for your first cousin, even though you're once removed. So the example that the Rashbam gives is always with Bnei Yaakov. So you have Reuben and Shimon, their brothers. We'll call them first generation. Reuben and Shimon's children are first cousins. That will be called second generation. And then Reuben and Shimon's grandchildren will be considered third generation. So Reuben's grandchildren can say Eidos for Reuben's grandchildren could say Eidos for Shimon's children. So the third generation can say Eidos for the second generation. They're not close enough to be a Korav. Rava says, let's extend the principle of our Abba a little bit further. Afirisha, Reuben's grandchildren can say Eidos even for Shimon himself, not only for Shimon's children. Mar Bar Avashi wanted to extend it even further, but Abba da Abba. You could say Eidos for your own grandfather. But Veles Hilchazak Kamar Bar Avashi. But the halacha is not like Mar Bar Avashi. It seems like the halacha is like Rava, that you're allowed to say Eidos for your great uncle. So that's, well, it says in the response. So the question is, your straight lineage, how far does relation go for? Well, let me just answer Duvi's question first. So the Rashbam directly addresses Duvi's question. It's actually a machlokes the Rashbam and Tosfos. So the Rashbam says, Ba'abo de Abba, Shiyoid haben lavi Abba. A son can say edus for his grandfather. Could go in Ben Chanoich made Leruvain. Tan Shlisha B'Rishon. But the last hilch the Kamar Barvashi, the B'nei Banim, U'B'nei Banim ad elef doyers forever and ever. Lo Yidul Avisayim, the Ben Yerech Avavu. But Tosfos argues the second to the last Tosfos says less hilch the Kamar Barvashi. Pirush b'Kodrist Afidu Atzav Kol Doris Puzzle B'Nir Lui Kivan Dispalik Dor Kol Kach. So it's not up to 1,000 dollars. At a certain point, you have zero connection in relation to your great grandfather, and at a certain point, you're considered a complete stranger, and you would be Nemon to say Eidos. Why are you laughing? So you're telling me if you're Nemon to say Eidos for him, you can't consider yourself a Miyuchas.
Great, whatever. There's 3 grades. I couldn't put in more than 3 grades. So he said, well, I'm perfect grade with him.
Really? Oh, so Weisdach, she holds like Tosfos. Right. There's a famous, although a little bit sobering, word from Rav Vosner. Rav Vosner lived a very long time. Right? He lived like 100 years old, and he had like great grandchildren when he died. So he said it's very unusual that someone should be zoich to see 5 generations, right? Great grandchildren. Because before the war, at the beginning of the 20th century, it was unheard of. Maybe you saw a grandfather. If people didn't live that long, that you'd see a grandchild or a great grandchild, or even a great grandchild. But today, it's not that uncommon to have somebody who has great grandchildren. Your shver has that, and I think you're no. Yeah.
My mother has 2 great grades.
So Rav Vosner said after the Holocaust, it says in the Torah, if you're Tavach U'Mochar, you pay Daled V'Chamisha. You pay Arba V'Chamisha if it's Tavach U'Mochar. It says that the Holocaust Hashem was Tavach U'Mochar. So because of that, He's paying us back now with 4 and 5 generations. You'll be able to see. That's what Rav Vosner once said. It's a little bit of a sobering thought, but that's what he said. That's why nowadays you find that people live that long. Okay. Now the concern is if the Zayda lives too long, people are concerned that the Yerusha is going to get used up.
Wait for that. The Yerusha should last to the 4th of September.
Amen. Okay.
They say 3.
I shouldn't say amen because to some people that might be a curse.
Right. Shirt sleeves is shirt sleeves in 3 times.
Zog the Gemara weiter. Shalach lei Rav Abba. So I think this is halacha number 4, right? This is halacha number 4. The first halacha was the commitment. The second halacha was the goyim avodim. The third halacha was the relations. Now we're up to the fourth halacha. The fourth halacha is shalach lei Rav Abba or Rav Yosef Racham. Hayu yodei aloi be'edus karka ad shaloi nistam. You were a 8. You had information that you saw, let's say, specifically where the border is between 2 fields, as to how far the field of Mr. A extends. And what happened was this party who was able to identify up until where someone's property goes became blind. So how is he going to be able to point out to Besdin where the end of the field is if he can't see anymore? So therefore, he will be puzzling. So even though at the time of the Eidos, he saw whatever he needed to see, now since he cannot properly relay the Eidos because he can't see, he's no longer a kosher aid for this subject. Shmuel Amar kosher. Shmuel holds no, he's still kosher, because just because someone can't see, that doesn't mean he can't give over information accurately. After the Machavan Mitrana, he could tell, I know that this border is opposite this post or that post. You can still give simonim. He might be able to give simonim that will still be able to clarify where the gvul comes from. Avol glima loy. But if it's a question about saying a certain beggar belongs to Reuven, that he wouldn't be able to do because he doesn't have such good mile markers, such good landmarkers. Rab Sheshes Omar Afilu Glima. Even he can even be believed to say about a beggar that it belongs to somebody, and he's able to identify it without seeing it now, although he did have to see it at the time. The mechavan midas arko midas rachboy. He can tell you exactly what its size is. That would be a good simon because maybe that specific dimensions are not that common. Avol nascho, but if it's about a piece of gold, piece of copper, a piece of silver, a lump, loy, then he wouldn't be believed. I guess they were not because there were maybe they're standardized sizes, and therefore it's even saying the size, the amount, the weight wouldn't be enough. If he knows its exact weight, that'll also be a good simon. So the machlokes is in each of these cases, it's a multiple phase machlokes as to what would be able to be relayed after one no longer has vision. All of these three mand armim are going to be abgeschlagen very soon. So Rav Papa and Rav Sheshes and Shmuel will all be abgeschlagen. Meisvei the Gemara has a kash. Someone saw Edus that he could say now Edus for Reuven, but then he married Reuven's daughter. So therefore, now he's possible Edus. Or Pikach v'nischarish, when he saw the Edus, he was a healthy person. He became a cherish. So now he's no longer a healthy person. Or Pisach v'nistava, he saw Edus and then he went blind, and now he can't see it anymore. Or Shafui v'nishtate, he was of sound mind and then he became no longer of sound mind. So possible in all these cases, he's possible because at the time when he would be expected to give over the Edus, he wouldn't be able to due to his condition. But what if you knew an Edus before you become Reuben's son-in-law, and then now the Eid became the son-in-law of Reuben, so he's possible because he's negei b'davar. But then then Reuben's daughter passes away, meaning the Eid is no longer his son-in-law. The Eid is now a third party, and the Rishbam sticks in, and there's no children. I guess if there's children, even though the mother's not alive, it still connects the son-in-law to the father-in-law. Umesa bitoy or pikach v'nischarish v'chosav v'nispak. So there was a time in between the Re'iyas Eidus and the relaying of the Eidus where he wasn't well, but at the critical times when he saw the Eidus and when he needed to relay the Eidus, he was healthy and fine. Or pisach v'nistama v'chazar v'nispateach, became blind and he was able to see again. Or shafli v'nishtata v'chazar v'nishtava. In all these cases, kosher. Zaklal, this is the rule. Kol shetchilasoi oy soifai b'paslas. If at any critical moment in time the person is apostlate, like when he saw the Eidus or when he's relaying the Eidus, that'll be possible. But chilasoi b'soifai b'kashrus, we don't care if in the middle at some time the Eidus possible. So you see clearly that if someone is blind at the time that he has to give over the Eidus, the bride is saying black and white, it's possible. So that Gemara tiyuvta dechalani. Shmuel was agushlogan because he said a blind person can give over Eidus of how big a karka is. Rabbi Sheshes says a blind person can give over Eidus of how big a beged was. And Rav Papa said you can give over an Eidus about how much something weighs, even though you can't see it anymore. Clearly, this bride says that would be impossible. Tiyuvta, the chulu tiyuvta. So this was the fourth or the fifth. I think this was the fourth halacha of Reb Abba. If I counted right, fourth. So now on Amud Beis, we're going to be issue number 5. Shalach Reb Abba li Rab Yosef Barcham. Ha'imar al tinuk bein habonim. Someone says a testimony about one of his children. Neman he's believed. What are we talking about? The Gemara will elaborate upon shortly. Rabbi Yochanan he's not Neman. Exactly what type of edus is this person saying about one of his children? Ha'omer al tinuk bein abonim. What if you pick one of your children and you decide Yirash kol nechasai? This individual child should yarshin my entire estate to the detriment of his brothers. The lach is neman. He's believed. If you remember, Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka said that if he's your Yerush anyway, you can divert all of the Yerush to him. So you're able to create a scenario where all of the Yerush will go to one Yerush amongst the rest of the Yerush.
Funny language, man.
That's a beautiful kasha. That's exactly what the Gemara is going to ask just in a minute. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, he's not believed. Kirabanan, who disagree with Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka. Matzkafla Rabba, Hai Neman ve'ene Neman. There's not a question of if he's believed or not. The question is if he can do it. If it's referring to the discussion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka and Rabbanan, like Avigdor asked, the lashon should have been Ha'omer al tinnik bein abanim Irish. He will be Irish, and Rabbi Yochanan said he won't be Irish. It's not a shayla of nemanis at all. Elo Amar Rava, I will tell you what the discussion is. Ha'omer al tinnik bein abanim b'chorhu. If you identify a tinnik amongst all your children as a b'chor, which means the rest of those children who you thought were yours were really fathered by the milkman, right? Like Tosha said yesterday, that means you're also making the older children, the assumed older children, into mamzerim. Neman, you're believed. Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda was the one who said that the pasuk of Yakir, the pasuk that gave an emunus to the father to identify which of his children is a bechor, is giving him that ability to identify the child as a bechor, even though there are other children, or there's another child who already has a chazaka as being the bechor. The father's power is stronger than that. Rabbi Yochanan or Einay Nemon, like the Rabbanan, who hold that the father's yakir only allows him to identify who the bechor is when there's no chazaka against him. And if you remember, the Gemara asked yesterday, if there's no chazaka against him, why in the world would he need a special nemanus of the Torah to identify who the bechor is? He has a migoy that anyway he can give that child pishnayim. So the Gemara gave two examples where that wouldn't be an option. Either if you hold a kameir, or if it's nechasim that he receives when he's a goisis, those nechasim he doesn't have a migoy on, that he could give it away. And I don't think Yitzchak liked that answer, right? So Yitzchak like Tosfos is better, who says it could be something that's not a vidi de asi. So even your mayor would hold that you cannot be makna davar shaloi b'lodim. So therefore, you need the namanas to be able to say that this is a bechor and he will get pishnayim. So this was number 5. Okay, I believe here we have Rabbi Yochanan hold like Rabbanan like Rabbi Yehuda. I think we passed on already like Rabbi Yehuda. So that's going to come up a little bit later. Item number 6. Sholach Rabbi Abba Rabbi Yosef Bar Chama. Somebody declared, my wife is going to get just like one of the children. The halach is when he dies, she doesn't get a chelik of the Yerusha, she just get a ksuba. Now she's also going to get an equal share. So that there's 8 children, and there's no bechor, you'll split the Yerusha into 9 pieces, and she'll get a piece equal to what every one of the children would have got. I'm sorry? I guess she would have to prove that he said that. Amarova, and the response says it could be speaking about a shchivmara, that the bar Amarova, uvenechasim shalach. That he said, my wife's going to get an equal chelik, he could only be referring to the possessions that he currently has when he made this commitment. What if a week later he wins the lottery, right? He wasn't referring to that money when he gifted her. He's only gifting her from assets that he has at this point. Any assets that come into his estate or into his possession, even as a live man, after this commitment, are not included in this. Those will be distributed exclusively to his real Yorshim, his children. But even though he's telling her right now that you're going to get an equal share to my children, he means any children that I'll have at the time of death. Meaning, let's say he has 8 children now. She's not going to get 1/9 of the estate. Because if he has another child before he dies, then we'll say what he meant originally was if there's going to be more children born, they also get a fair share. You'll get equal to one of my children. So she's getting sort of the short end of the stick on both ends. The assets included in this commitment are only assets that he has at the time that he made the commitment, But we say when he made the commitment, he was definitely thinking about all his sons, even the ones that would have been born after the commitment. So now we're up to item number 6. Item number 7. What happens if Reuben pulls a shtar choiv that says, Shimon, you owe me $100,000? Malva Omer Lein Nefreit. Reuben says, you owe me the full $100,000. Lein Nefreiti Klum. I wasn't paid back a penny. The Loiv Omer Paraiti Mechet. Yes, you have a star, but I paid you $50,000. Now, normally that time is useless because I could say shtar chabiyadi maboy. You have to pay me all the $100,000. You're not nemoed to say paraiti without Adam, without some type of proof or receipt, because I have the star that still says you owe me 100,000. But the Adam Eden Shapara, after the loiva admitted that he owed half, after the loiva was a moed b'miktas, 2 Adam came along to neutralize the star because they said, no, we saw Edus that the loiva paid back in full. So the halacha is, Hareza Yish Nishba, he still has to swear al moed b'miktas because he's believed on himself even more than Adam are believed on himself. So we look at him like he's a moed b'miktas, the goiva mechza, and therefore he will have to pay back half again because he admitted that he didn't pay back half. But if the loiva doesn't have assets, the malva can't seize property that the loiva sold. He could only take from what the loiva has. Why? He can't go take from the lekuches because the lekuches will say, you can't take away our property. And nana edim samchina. When we bought the property, we were soimich on the fact that he wasn't encumbered because we know there were edim. That said he paid back. So you might have some deal with him. He might have been moided to you, but he might be making a scam with you. He might have made a deal with you that you're going to take the money away from me, you're going to take the property away from me, then he'll split it. So I don't trust you. We have a right to be soimich hanedim, so you cannot take property from us. But between you and the loiva, yes, it's a void of a miktas, and he would have to swear on the half, and the other half he would have to pay you, but not on our cheshbon. And the Torah changed it to Rabbi Yaakov. Rabbi Kiva holds in this case, it's a Meshav Aveda. Now the case that Rabbi Kiva was talking about is, Reuben pulls a star on Shimon, and it says, you owe me matbeos. Doesn't say how many. The Malva claims there is 5 matbeos in this deal, so you owe me 5 matbeos. And the Levi says, I only owe you 3 matbeos. So you might say it's a moed b'miktas, and you're chayav b'shvua. Zok Rabbi Kiva, you're not chayav b'shvua. I'm a Meshav Aveda. Because matbeos, the minimum matbeos is 2, the minimum of a plural language. And I said I owe you 3. I'm a Meshav Aveda because I could have easily gotten away with 2. Yes, I was moed b'miktas. I told you that I owe you a 3rd one, but that's not considered a moed b'miktas that would trigger a chiv. That's called a Meshav Aveda because Migo, I didn't have to say that. I could have said 2, and I would have had support from the Lashon HaStar. That's mashma 2. So there wouldn't be a chiv moed b'miktas. So even Rabbi Kiva, who holds that when I agreed to more than I needed to, that's not called moed b'miktas. That's called kameshiv aveda. So you might want to make that same argument over here. I didn't have to say I owed you half. I could have said I owed you nothing because there's an Adam that says I paid you back. So the fact that I'm moed that I still owe you half, that should be meshiv aveda, and that should not trigger a chiyuv shua. So Gemara Hanamili heicha delaka Adam. That would only be the case if there were no Adam at all. Since there are Adam, meaning the loiva also knew that there were Adam, and he doesn't know what the Adam are going to say. You're too sayirtis. And then he's afraid to say anything because he doesn't know that maybe the Adam who he thinks are going to say that it's all paid off, maybe they'll change their mind and say it's not paid off. I'd rather nobody know about anything than someone knows something. Because once someone knows something, who knows what he's going to say? So therefore, he's not like a Meshav Aveda. He has that fear that there are Adam somewhere out there, and therefore he's not going to want to lie. That's not called Meshav Aveda. But in the case of a star, there's no Adam at all. It's just a question of the Lashon HaStar, and the Lashon HaStar strongly supports the fact that it's only 2 matbeos, and by agreeing to pay 3 matbeos, clearly that's a case of Meshav Aveda. Maskav Lamar Baravashi. Adarabba, maybe you should look at from the opposite perspective. I feel Reb Shimon Elazar, who holds there that it's a moed b'miktas taina haven, and he doesn't believe in this concept of Meshav Aveda L'Bailam. Rather, you admit it as 3 Matpeyos. The Malva claims it's 5 Matpeyos. He requires you to make a Shvuah, to come a silent. Over there's no Edim at all that's supporting the guy who said 3 Matpeyos instead of 5. Over here there's Mamish Edim to come a silent, Vade Meshav Aveda. So there's a svart to say, what do you mean? Here I know Edim. I know there's Edim that are going to say that I don't know. So we're going to soon see, the Gemara is going to articulate why we don't like this taina of Mar Baravash. Dosh Mar Zutra Mishmei Rav Simi Barashi, Hilchaza B'chol Hani Shmaitza, Kedisholach Lei, Rab Abba Rabbi Yosef Barcham. We quoted 7 halachas. In all 7 cases, we pass like these halachas. Omer Le Ravina Le Ravashi. Oh, so before we go weiter, what about this last thing? What about Mar Baravashi's taina? That over here, if anything, I have support, I have Edom, so it should be Kameshav Aveda. Zok to Gemara. Oh no, the Gemara is going to talk about it over here. Okay, I'm sorry. The Gemara is going to talk about it Beferish. So I won't answer that now. We'll answer that in a moment. So Frank Gemara, Amar Rabbeinu Ravashi, the Rab Nachman Mai. Rab Nachman said that you cannot be goyve from avodim. Right? That was a second shtickle. You cannot be goyve from avodim, because even though avodim are hokshul kakoyis, there's still no shibud on them because someone doesn't rely on them. We always pass like Rab Nachman and Din. So how could you paskin like Rab Abba said? Rab Nachman, we said argued on it, right? He said goyvin, and Rab Nachman said ain't goyvin. So how could you say we paskin against Rab Nachman? Amar lei ain't goyvin masnin lo v'chein amar Rab Nachman. We were goyers originally when we were into Gemara that he said goyvin, and Rab Nachman argues and says ain't goyvin. Let's change what he said. What he really said was ain't goyvin, and then we quoted and Rab Nachman also says ain't goyvin. So now he's consistent. It's so easy to make him consistent with Rab Nachman. That's you say what he said was like what Rab Nachman said. If Mar Zutra saw the need to announce that halacha is like Rab Abba, what would we have said otherwise? Bishlama, if the halacha is like him, connected Rab Nachman, that's a major statement that Mar Zutra needs to make, because otherwise we would never know to pass like Rab Abba connected Rab Nachman. But now that you say that Rab Abba said the same thing as Rab Nachman, exactly what chiddush is there for Mar Zutra? What would I have thought halacha is not like Rab Abba, that Mar Zutra had to come out and say that halacha is like Rab Abba? So Zok to Gemara Anam Adal. If it's to say that we don't know like Rava, remember Rava was the one who said that you're not only are you believed for your first cousin if you're once removed, you're also believed on your great uncle, right? So whoever said that Rabbi Abba is arguing on Rava, Rava is just saying that in additional halacha you're believed there as well. Not necessarily is Rabbi Abba arguing. You might ask, so then Rabbi Abba should have said the greater chiddush. Maybe Rabbi Abba was referring to a case that actually occurred, where you have someone who's a first cousin once removed saying Eidim. And Idamar Baravashi, or if you want to say that he means to say we don't pass like Mar Baravashi, who said you could even say Eidim for your grandfather, right? I don't need Mar Zutra to say that. Why? Because right off the bat, when we said the Gemara there, part of the report was that less Hilchazah Kamar Baravashi. So I don't need Mar Zutra to tell me that. And Ila Fukemi Dishmul Barabsheshes Barapapa. If you're telling me that the reason why Mar Zutra said Allah Krababa is to tell us that we don't pass like Shmuel, that a blind person could say Edus on Karka. And we don't pass like Rabsheshes, that a blind person could say Edus on a Beged. And we don't say like a Papa, that a blind person could say Edus on a Nascha. I don't need Mar Zutra to tell me that. We actually slugged them up from him for Shabraisa that says someone who's blind cannot say Edus on anything at all. So exactly what Chiddush is Mar Zutra trying to convey when he says we paskin like Rababa? A is to tell us that we don't pass like Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan was not one who said Einoi Nemon. A person is not believed in the Neged Chazaka to identify one of his sons as a Bechor, and we don't pass like Rabbi Yochanan. We pass like Rabbi Abba, who passes like Rabbi Yehuda, who holds a father is Nemon to identify his son as a Bechor, even though there was another Bechor that was Huchzik. And Umiyat Kavta the Mar Baravashi. We just had a kasha. Mar Baravashi says, I don't understand. Here it's Mamish Meshav of Edel Abailim. You have 2 Edom that are saying that he paid up. So when he said that I owe half, that's Mamish Akesha of Meshav of Edel, why would it require a Shvuah? Mar Zutra is telling us that's not a good kasha. Now we just need to know why it's not a good kasha. So Zokt the Rashbam right here on the side. And we had Kafta, the Mar Baravashi. The Osalamemer, you know what Marzut was telling us? Vade Meshav Avedahu. It is a Meshav Avedahu. The less Hilchos, he said, Mar Baravashi, this is a Meshav Aveda. Because you have Adam, it's saying that you're Potter in Gantin and you admitted to be Chayiv half of the loan. That's a Meshav Aveda. It wouldn't require Shvua, but the less Hilchos HaKavos say. Marzut was saying we don't pass like this tiny that Mar Baravashi had, that this is considered a case of Meshav Aveda. Why not? Zakter Rashbam, here's the psyche of a person. The Kibun Dakati Kishahoida, Loy Ha'idu Adam, as Rashbam said earlier, the case was, of course, there were not, if the Adam came first and said the Loiva owes nothing, the Loiva is not coming afterwards and being Moida. The whole case here is the Loiva was Moida before the Adam came. Right? That's the only logical explanation as to how this happened. So at the time that the Loiva was Moida, he didn't know Adam were coming. So he still has doubt in his mind. Even the Akadik is a Haida, Loya Idu Adam, and therefore Veloy Kamasayale. At the time that he's saying his Adus, he is not being supported by Adam because Adam didn't come yet. That's not called Meshav Aveda. Ikal Amemar, the Mirzus Minayu. He's still afraid that Adam might be coming. He doesn't know exactly what the Adam are going to say. So therefore, he's not a Meshav Aveda because he didn't know that Adam would be supporting him at the time that he made his argument. To Abba. So therefore, we pass on Abba and we say that there is a chiyuv shvua, and it's not like a case of meishav aved. Gewalt. So I believe we finished today's daf. So what I just want to focus on for a second is this case of Mirsus, this case of where he was moida that he owed half of what the loan in the star said, and Adam came along and said that he owes nothing at all. So let's have a look at the details of this case. So I want to look at the Rishbam that says Nishpa. It's about 8 lines down in the wide lines of Kuf Chav Chesamid Beis. Nishpa Loiva Shapara. The Loiva can swear that he paid half. The Yiftar Mila Shalamech. And through his Shvua of Moedi B'Miktas, he will only have to pay half. But Umechzu Yishalem Lefisha Kvar Hoida. He still has to pay half because he admitted that he owed half. Either is Adam that say he doesn't know anything. His admission carries more weight than even Adam. Therefore, the Malva can collect half based on the Haidah that the Loiva made that he owed half, but only from uncovered properties that the Loiva has in his possession. The Malva wouldn't have the right through this admission to extract properties from people who purchased it from this loiva. The purchasers could say, you have no right to seize our properties over a loan that our vendor had to you, because you probably made a scam in between you that he will falsely be made they owe some money, and then you're going to come collect from us, and then he'll split the difference with you. As purchasers, we have a right to say that we're reliant on the Edim, the Mesadi, the Parakono, and the properties that we bought were in fact unencumbered. Look to the Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar is B'tchila Shnai Moshe at the beginning of the first parak above Mitzia. And it says, Star Shekasav Boy, Sloin Adinorim. There's a star that says, Reuben O Shimon Sloin, plural, without specifying an amount. Malva Omer Chomish. The Malva claims that it represents 5 coins, for Loiva Omer Sholosh. And the Loiva says that it only represents 3 coins. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer Hoyel v'Hoida Mikzah Tiny Yeshava. This is a classic case of Moedim Mikzas. The Malva says 5, the Loiva says 3, so he must swear. But Rabbi Kiva Omer, no, there would be no shvu in this case. Eino Yela Kamesha Vaveda. You could have easily said 2. The fact that you said 3 makes you Tamesha Vaveda upatim in shvua. Now, why don't you say that by every Moedim Mikzas? I could have done that at all. The teretz is, we learned in Bava the psyche of a loiva is, since you lent me money, I would never have the guts to totally deny. Therefore, really, I would want to pay you the whole thing, but I don't have the money. I would want to deny it all because I don't have the money, but I wouldn't dare do something like that. So I said I will have a bit, and then I figured I'll push off the other half until I have the money, right? So therefore, the Torah said, "Moed miktas." If we put you to the wall with a shvua, you'll come clean and you'll be moed. So here, the reason why so normally you never have the svar of Meshav Aveda. You only have the svar of Meshav Aveda if you have a very strong support to back you up that you could deny the whole thing. Then you will say, oh, the Meis Panav B'fnei B'chayvoi, because he has strong support saying that. So Rabbi Kiva says, because a Shvura Tesloyin is not unclear. It's clear. It means two. So I'm easily able to say two. And there's no problem of Eino the Meis Panav to be Koifer HaKoil from his B'chayv, because I have a star that says two, because Sloyin without a number is not just ambivalent, it's actually clear. It's clear that it means two. And therefore, I'm potter from a shvur, and I admitted a third, it's not Amoid the Mitzvahs, that is called Meshav Aveda. The Sloim Lemashvat famous nine. Sloim is not unclear at all. It's clear, it means Bedafka two. The Tavasta Mubal Tavasta, and the Yadvala Charlotte Tachtoin, the Malva has zero proof to anything more than just two Sloim. Since he was so generous and he admitted that he owed a third coin, that's how the Kameshav Aveda. And the Allah is every time I find a wallet and there's $1,000 in it, and I give it back to the owner could always say there was $1,500 in it, right? And make me swear. If that would happen, no one would ever return a wallet. Here, it's no good deed goes unpunished. I'm here, I'm going to return your wallet, and then you're going to say I stole money from you. I don't need the whole thing. So therefore, a Meshav Aveda doesn't swear. So based on that, Tosh is a very interesting point. Why isn't this considered a Meshav Aveda L'Bailam? Because the Eloiva knows there are Edom out there, and he doesn't know he's going to get away with it all, and therefore he's not considered a Meshav Aveda. But it's mashma that there's this positive force that scares me from lying. It's not neutral. There's a positive force that's scaring me away from lying, the Eloiva from lying. So Taimari, Amai Tali Taimim Mishamirsus. Why do you need a positive force that scares me into lying in order to make it Ois Meshav Aveda? There's an extra thing here that's actually scaring me from saying something that's not correct because I'm afraid I'll be contradicted by Adam. I don't need that. Even if there's no Adam at all, meaning I don't have anything that's scaring me, but I don't have anything that's supporting me. All I need, what do we say? How does Meshav Aveda work? If I have any level of support to a lie, then I am going to be Meis. Once I don't have the support of Adam, I don't need the fear of Adam either. Merely not having the support of Adam puts me back into the default of Ein Adam Meis Panav B'fnei B'chayvei Lichvar HaKol. It's mashma that I needed that there's actually positive Adam scaring me from lying. No, as long as there's nothing, if it's neutral, we have the base kind of Ein Adam Meis Panav B'fnei B'chayvei. So why? So the Tosfos is asking, why did the Torah say the reason why it's not Kameshav Aveda L'Bailam because he's afraid of Adam? It just should say is that he doesn't have support of it. The fact is he thinks that Adam are coming to benefit. He's the one who's bringing these Adam. And they already told him that they're planning to say that he owes nothing. So now he knows probably they're going to come and tell you I owe nothing. So I could have easily said that I owe nothing, and I wouldn't have a problem with the Meis because I have Adam that's supporting me. Now there's no Azus at all if he's kafir at all, and therefore, since there's something giving him confidence, we need something to neutralize that level of confidence. Otherwise, he could still have the confidence to say that he owes nothing. He loves Shiyore. The fact is, until they actually share the testimony, he doesn't know what's going to happen under cross. He doesn't know if these Adam will come through for him and say that he owes nothing at all. Therefore, but since he is afraid that maybe their Adis won't pan out properly, and under cross they might admit that he owes money, he cannot easily be covered for everything while relying on the Adam. He doesn't want to look like a liar. So all we're trying to do is neutralize that support that he has that will allow him to be kofer koil. And once we neutralize that force, we have the overarching svara that Ein Adam Meis Panav B'fnei B'chayvei, and therefore he is mechuyev to swear a shvuas mitzvahs. Okay, we'll stop here, and we'll pick up tomorrow on Daf Kuf Chav Tesh Amud Aleph by the two dots.